alloys and
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NASA Armstrong Flight Visualization Facility, also known as the Water Tunnel. You get to choose which word you'd like to use. My name is Jennifer Cole. I'm a branch chief here at NASA Armstrong. The branch that this facility supports is the Aerodynamics and Propulsion branch. Working with me today will be Cynthia Rose, Dave Berger, and Chris Olson. And this is Katie here as well. So, the FlowViz facility, aka the water tunnel, what we use this facility for is looking at large-scale, complex flows associated with airplanes. We're going to get a chance to see some of those flows. But before we get over there, I kind of want to give you a brief history, basically, of how we've used this facility. All the way over here, I'm going to step in front of this here. This is the HL-20. For those of you who follow the space side of things, Dream Chaser, that looks a whole lot like Dream Chaser. That was a shape that we studied a lot, actually, quite a bit, in past years. And yes, we actually did put that here in this water tunnel probably about a couple decades ago, actually. We also have the space shuttle. Everyone can see the space shuttle up there at the top. What's cool about this picture is that you can really see the vortices. And we're going to talk about vortices a bit, but this is probably one of the biggest reasons to use a water tunnel. A vortex, plural, the vortices, is a huge factor on certainly swept wing airplanes. It can really have a big impact on pretty much everything that comes after it, just to begin with. So the space shuttle had some really, really strong vortices just due to the shape of the wing itself, actually. You can see the F-18 down here. You guys will actually get a chance to pull a model, probably that one right there. You can see as well, this is dye that basically flows down off the nose and it rolls up in the flow. This whole facility, as we use it now, we use pretty much just dye. In the past, we have used things like fluorescent dyes, where we can basically use, different lights and things like that to get a better sense of what the flow is doing. We also have used particles, where we'll actually inject particles into the flow and then look at them through like a laser light sheet to see instantaneously what the flow is doing. We don't use it now like that a whole lot, but we still use it for, we still use it using the dye. And that's pretty much what you see here. So, as I've mentioned a couple times, the reason to put something in a water tunnel is to look at big, complex flows. We're not looking at lift, we're not looking at drag, we're not looking at moments and stuff like that. We are looking at the really big types of things that you might not know were there until you throw into a water tunnel, or you go and fly it, right, to see how these pieces of the airplane really interact with each other. And we'll talk a bit more about that down here. This is the 81. This is the X-29, our first forward swept wing. And this is actually a generic four-body, but it's modeled after the X-31. You can kind of see there's some X-31 history there. So feel free to look at that as we go. Yes, questions?
The space shuttle image, what's the alpha on that?
I could not tell you, sir. I do not know. Usually, when we're taking data, this background would be white, and we would have a little box here. It says alpha equals something. So that tells me that this was a photo that was more, hey, look, really cool vortex.
So does water behave the same as air then?
So, no, it does not.
I was curious why you're using water.
Well, the reason why we use this here is water and air will act the same for certain types of flows. If you're looking at the flow quality itself, like whether the flow is attached, or if it's smooth, or if it's all separated, we will not be using a water tunnel. But if you're looking at very large structures, like vortices, for example, then the two are very much aligned. The driver behind the water tunnel is obviously the water is sticky, right? It's very viscous. Whereas with air, you tend to have more of a inertial force there, or I'm sorry, more of an inertial force there. So from that standpoint, the complex flows that we model, those are largely independent of that. So that's part of why we can use this. It's also really good to be able to inject that dye in there too.
Well, it's a bigger
straight-
visual maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's straightforward. It's easy to, turn that around. I mean, this thing is filled with water right now.
Yeah, you don't need a big wind tunnel and a big.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly, yeah. So, this is off, by the way, now. It's filled, but it's off so that we can all hear, not shout as much. See? So this is the model we will pass around. This is a F-18 model. I want to stress that these models, if you look at the bottom of this cabinet, these are the same type of models you could get at your hobby shop. That's how well, we meet this. I should say that's the level of complexity that we're looking at. We're not looking at, the actual surface per se, for drag and stuff like that. We're looking at these big flows. This is an F-18, and in this case, when you pass this around, please be careful of these. These are sharp, and try and hold it as much as you can by this sting, and then rest it in your hand. They're not super delicate, but they can be great. You'll see on here these little holes. What our model shop people did is they basically assembled one of those models, and in doing so, they actually incorporated all of these little stainless steel tubes that go up and actually attach to the surface, to these drilled holes, and this is how we get the dye in there. It is completely flush. So there's,
cool.
This is the exception here. This is what we don't really want to do, right? Because this is not really representative of the aircraft itself. But each one of these is then hooked up to a separate dye port in here. So that we can actually inject the dye, we can mount the airplane, and then the water will run just like that. And then we can change the alpha on the airplane. In some cases, we can actually change the roll or the yaw. We can play with all of that. Pretty fun. Any questions so far? There were a couple hands that went up earlier. I only got to one.
You just answered it.
I did. Great. Awesome. Okay.
You enjoy playing with toys all day?
What's that?
You enjoy playing
Model
with
airplanes.
Oh, it's a whole lot of fun to be out here. It's a whole lot.
You're a
of
big kid, huh?
Kind of, yes. That's not as big a kid as maybe as the pilots get.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
They're the biggest kids, right?
So this table here, I want to call out specifically the High Alpha, the High Alpha Research Project, or HARP. You guys have heard about HARP. HARP was enormously successful. We learned reams of data from that. A lot of what we learned in that went into a lot of the fighters that you see here today, just flying here in general. This work here is all representative of flow visualization. This is the model actually in this water tunnel. Then they actually went out and flew, and you can see all of these smoke. They actually had, a smoke generator inside the airplane. They would go out and fly at those high angles of attack and actually inject flow out and actually get to see how those vortices changed as you changed in angle of attack, how you changed in flight envelope, or I should say flight condition, and all the rest of that. So this is a bit of a pictorial history there. The rest of this table here is other airplanes that would also be, considered high alpha. These are all very high angle of attack capable airplanes with the same kind of wing configuration. These guys are going to have a lot of vortices that at high angles of attack are going to wrap off of these wings, very similar to what you see here. Just these beautiful ribbons, these spirals that come off. Why this is important? At high angles of attack, if you can picture on this airplane, you have a vortex that's coming off of this thing, or this streak here, it's going to hit the vertical tail. This actually was discovered very early on in the F-18 program because they were getting fatigue issues on the vertical tail and they didn't know why. Well, it turned out that at high angles of attack, got a vortex that would just wiggle this vertical tail. That's just one example. They have since made a mod to the airplane, so they don't have to worry about that anymore. But that's just one example of how useful a water tunnel is. You put in a basic configuration, a configuration that then you can modify pretty easily, like overnight, and you go in there and you can run the airplane through a whole series of different configurations. You can take off wings, put on wings, do whatever, and very quickly see if there's going to be any interactions that you need to be sensitive to in flight. Or maybe you're getting the interaction that you're looking for as well. Any questions? No? Okay. So, real quick before we get into the tunnel, over in this corner here, I have just this is a really short slideshow that's just playing. I want to point out that the water tunnel has been used for things besides airplanes.